All right. Okay, thanks guys for coming in. We're just doing another top 10 reasons video about Mass Effect and how it can be brought back by the same YouTube channel, What Culture. They did pretty much the same question a year ago after, I guess, the release of Andromeda. They went, whoa, ouch. So then they came up with their own reasons as to why or how they could bring back Mass Effect. And it's affectionately titled 10 Ways Bioware Can Still Save Mass Effect. So it's been 1 year later, they're still hoping. And I can only assume it's going to be another year. They're going to release another video. And they'll have the same top 10 list, if not by another users. I'm sure everyone on that channel loves Mass Effect, if not video games in general. So I'm here again with UDP. We did the same thing on Sunday. Hello, sir.
Hello.
And we're going to do a wonderful 10-minute video by What Culture and critiquing it and trying to find if there's anything that can save this wonderful beloved franchise that has gone astray and been forgotten and left to the wayside, and maybe they can bring it back. We don't know. We'll find out. So let's get going.
In case you missed it, back in August, Bioware and the Mass Effect Andromeda team have announced they'll no longer be supporting the single-player portion of the game. The news came after an earlier statement from EA essentially saying the franchise was being put on hold thanks to the disastrous reception and quality of Andromeda in general, and now we've got an outright cancellation of any meaningful support. Going forward, Andromeda will still receive multiplayer updates, yippee, but the biggest blow comes from knowing that the near-mythical Quarry and Arc DLC is now not coming at all. Mentioned at the close of Andromeda's story, the game's narrative setup sequestered each respective race to a specific arc that would then arrive in Andromeda somewhere down the line, yet the only acknowledgement this received in the cancellation statement is that the Quarians will now be discussed in spin-off comics and books.
And this doesn't make too much sense. Why not make DLC that people would actually buy? Is it because no one didn't get enough sales figures from Andromeda and the DLC wasn't a good idea anymore? Like, we're not sure.
I think because they're under the umbrella of EA, they have to meet certain targets before something is kind of like deemed worthy, quote. So, and I think they fell short under Aaron Flynn's original pitch in terms of what they would sell in terms of a minimum. Like, I believe there's a documentation stating that Aaron Flynn said that they would sell at a minimum of 5 million copies at full price in the first 3 months of release.
For Andromeda.
Yes, for Andromeda. And they fell woefully short on that one.
What was the prognosis for the release date of Anthem? It was 6 million, right?
Yes, it was 6 million in the first month.
Oh dear.
So they're getting more. So they're getting more and more insane, and I think that is the pressure mounting. This is very similar to Dead Space 3, whereby EA basically told them, if you want to continue this product again, you're gonna have to sell X amount of units because it's costing us too much or whatever. Or there's probably some reason why.
I'd be surprised if EA says, well, you know what, we still like the actual studio, but we're going to give you less money because you're not doing it right. And I bet you any money that the Bioware team would be like, oh shit, we really got to deliver and stop putzing around with all our time and resources and just get this thing done. They'd probably make a tighter game with less money. I think they would, just because they're pressured and they've been failing so hard.
All a bit naff really, but Mass Effect has come too far and means too damn much to too many people for one crap ending and a mediocre game to undo it all. Legions of fans have N7 tattoos for Christ's sake, and as original Mass Effect lead Casey Hudson has returned to Bioware saying he loves Mass Effect too much to not want to work on it in the future, well, there's hope. There's something for us. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and this is 10 ways Bioware can still save Mass Effect. Number 10, use N7 Day to reassure us Mass Effect isn't dead.
I guess that's the weakest point. So that's not a very good reason. They've been doing that every year anyway, so it hasn't gone away. The fans are still going to do it. It's always a Twitter event. There might be a blog post. Who knows?
Isn't N70 just some kind of... Wasn't that an ME3 thing that they did?
They've been doing it every year since the release of Mass Effect 3, so...
It's not like it's been Mass Effect 1 and 2, has it?
No, not really. It hasn't changed anything. You might get some fans that pop up on Twitter showing off their tattoos or their cosplay, But you get that on Pinterest, you get that on Reddit. It's not a big deal. So, not a good, not a strong point. That's why it's number 10. I hope he's listing this in order, because this is really bad.
Is this like checking the cryogenic status of Mass Effect? And it's like, yeah, every now and then it's like, we need to check the pulse.
Yeah.
Boom.
Is it still alive? Still alive. It looks okay. Give it another year. Okay. Let's see. Another year? Yeah. Okay.
We know Andromeda isn't receiving any story updates, and the world's media ran with that being the final nail in the game's coffin, as did we for the most part. Though realistically, there's still N7 Day, and the same statement that acknowledged Andromeda's crippled state also intoned there'd be an announcement in November. Granted, it's not going to be anything close to, and we're going ahead with Mass Effect 5 anyway. But as long as Mass Effect gets treated to the reverence it deserves, fans will be happy.
Wasn't that the day that Casey had his mug? His coffee mug video about Anthem? Or was that just randomly in November or December? Because I know it wasn't that long ago. Where we like, oh my God, it's Casey. Yes. And he's sipping a mug of coffee.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one where it was an N7 Day. They were like, what does Mass Effect mean to you? And then you got Casey there like, hello, I'm Casey. I left the company 3 years ago for unknown reasons that I'm not going to explain why. I just bolted that there was a little Casey Hudson hole in the wall.
And now I'm in charge of it all. It's like, thanks.
Yeah, it's like he just got boomeranged back.
They gave me more money here. I'm here now. Hello. I love the cold. It's wonderful weather in Edmonton after, 30 centimeters of snow or whatever the hell it is there. My God, it's free. It's like minus 20, minus 30. Like it's bad in Canada in general, but up there, wow. It's like they must be paying you really well if you want to live there. Let's just say.
Does it also get like incredibly hot as well in the summer?
There are some times in the summer they have the Calgary Stampede and they have all these other events where it's really hot. But the snow and the winter is like one of the worst in the country, unless you go even to the Northwest Territories, even further north. So to want to live there, you gotta be like, they gotta be paying you very well.
And so, when you think of like stampedes, I always think of like the tumbler herd that goes through every now.
Yeah, so I don't know what Casey's getting out of this deal aside from money, but again, Casey was great in Mass Effect 1. For whatever reason, we don't know how, we don't know why exactly, but he was great then. Now I don't see an improvement, and again, this is sort of like halfway through the development of Anthem, so. He probably didn't do much. And if he did, oh my God, what happened? So, don't know. We'll find out.
Announce some new novels, comics, or merchandise. Maybe even the long-awaited remaster of the original trilogy. I mean, look, freaking Sonic stayed alive long enough to see Sonic Mania deliver the finest installment in his entire canon, so it's not like beloved properties ever truly disappear.
Let's also be reminded that Bioware did work on a Sonic game. So that's just ironic. It's not good or bad. It's just, they worked on stuff, which is still good. The Old Republic might still be good to some fans. It's not as big as it used to be. Nowhere near as popular as KOTOR. So,
Mass Effect is one of those franchises with an almost immortal cultural pull. People will always want to check out the latest updates and headlines surrounding its progression.
Not after Andromeda. We'd be we'd be curious, but we wouldn't be like, let's just skip that one too.
The only question is, when will BioWare mention what's next? Number 9, remaster the trilogy to remind the world why the franchise matters.
I can't even read that. What the hell?
I know. I think originally they were going to redo the first Mass Effect game, but that thing kind of actually fell through. I think that was actually. I'm not sure when, but they did advertise that they're going to I'm not sure if they're going to remaster it or re-release it. I forget.
Well, I see nothing wrong with a remaster. That's just sort of trying to sell something that is already popular and just with updated engines or whatever you want to do to it to make it look prettier. But doesn't really mean it's alive again or it's still being worked on. It's just like imagine it was a Silicon Knights version as they redid Metal Gear, the Twin Snakes. Like that they redid a hell of a lot of work. They did a lot of animation work, a lot of voice acting. I think they had used a different engine. Like it was really, they really redid the whole bloody thing. I can't see Bioware spending that much time on a remaster. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, you also had the mod, the texture pack mod, which is really fantastic, which adds a new lighting, all sorts of crazy swanky things.
Yeah, but that's stuff even fans could do. So
I don't know, but
it's nice that they can do that, but it's like, it's not exactly what people want.
Master the trilogy to remind the world why the franchise matters. Speaking of the original trilogy, for years, and especially this generation when remasters of everything from Prototype to frickin' Night Trap get commissioned, we've been waiting on a Mass Effect rework. Now, EA's Peter Moore once got a little heated over how many times the fans and press had bugged him about it, because, you know, it's kind of the only remaster people actually want, initially quashing all hope and pointing to Mass Effect Andromeda as something that was going to be the future. Of course, Andromeda failed to land and that future is now hella hazy, so why—
He said hella. Oh, God.
yeah.
Someone's been playing some other games we shall not name.
why not bring back a Mass Effect Trilogy box set? All 3 games touched up in HD or 4K, with all the DLC coded in as standard, you know, the whole definitive edition treatment. Announce it on N7 Day and have all sorts of fancy collector's editions, perhaps with a crew member figure each going alongside. Dibs on Tally. The fact is, you have a decade-strong franchise cemented in the minds of an entire generation of fans, with the rest of the world having absorbed some of that positivity through osmosis anyway. The first step to rebuilding Mass Effect as a name is to remind the world why it mattered in the first place.
You know, I'd like to see the first game remastered. I honestly would, just to see how it, how they could have done the shading effects, the film grain effects, some of the sounds. I would actually like to see that. The second and third games, they're okay. I wouldn't miss them. But the first one, yeah, that iconic sound, the Eden Prime, the film grain, the Mako, that I'd like to see redone, for sure.
Number 8, wipe the slate clean and focus on what matters.
Well, that's pretty generic. It's a very broad brush. It's like, geez, what would you wipe? Andromeda, minimum.
The blood, it doesn't come out.
Out damned spot.
Yeah.
Jeez, what would you get rid of?
Other than the entire ending sequence, and actually put something in that doesn't break everything.
Well, you can't get rid of 2 because everyone loves 2, so EA wouldn't have let them. They can't get rid of 3 because they'll just make another mess. Like, you can't trust them with concluding a story. Andromeda is the best bet. Do a reboot Andromeda or pick a canon ending. Really, that's it.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like you don't have to pick a canon ending. You just need to make a canon ending. You don't have to call it Destroyer or anything like that. You just need to sort of say this is what happened, or you drip feed it. Like the purpose of the next installment shouldn't be about resolving the problems of the past, but it should kind of go, yeah, this is kind of what happened, and you kind of allude to what really happened, rather than the strange ramblings of 2 men who are all smeared in green.
Wouldn't it be great though if you had like a Mass Effect continuation that you get to have Shepard for like a mission, like the Shepard DLC? It's like, oh my god, he's my teammate. Oh, how cool would that be? Like you have to import your save and it's the same model, it's the same Renegade or Paragon, whatever. Like that would be like, hey, that would be a really cool thing to see or have. He could be a Reaper clone or if you chose Control, it'd be like a clone of Shepard or something like that. Why not? Just a little homage, just to freak people out. Kind of like when not when you played Metal Gear Solid 2. That was sort of like a lie to the fans, but you got to see Snake in action, and he got to support you, etc. So that might be cool.
Personally, I never really minded Mass Effect Andromeda.
Okay, that's a problem. If this
Excuse
guy,
me, I have no standards.
I personally didn't mind. It's like, well, dude, if that's the case, get anyone to make any game that happens to have the Mass Effect franchise name, and you'll be happy. That's not what we're after here, people. We're here for quality. We're here for good storytelling, and of course, good gameplay. And Andromeda was arguably good gameplay. So if that's all he cares about, then This discussion doesn't matter. We shouldn't even be having this with over. He should not be the one making the video. It should be that other girl who made the previous or the latest one. She had standards, at least. She actually tried the demo and went, ooh, this is buggy as hell.
Overall, there was solid combat and serviceable crew interactions with animations that only really got better over time.
Better over time, as in they fixed them because they were broken on release.
And they weren't even up to the standards of Mass Effect 1, a middle market title that had a fraction of the budget of Andromeda. Sure, buddy. There we go.
It was like, what, 10 years old or something? It's like,
yeah, it's 10 years old, has a fraction of the budget. Yeah, clearly, we just need to compare, you know, the Lamborghini to your Mini Coupe. You know, that's fine, isn't it? It's still a car. It still drives.
It gets better. They look better as you go. Yeah, sure they do.
They've got wheels now.
I'm sure the overly simplistic design of PB's raccoon face paint was really refined. I'm sure some designer spent a lot of time on, well, we should give her like, you know, like eyeliner, make her look refined, make her look like an experienced scavenger. It's like, no, just smear it across her face. Great design work there.
It's like a squirt gun's gone wrong. You know, like makeup gone wrong.
Look at Liara, her face makeup or whatever. In the first game, it looked like her eyebrows were specifically drawn on. Very limited. Very specific. Same with the actual tattoos from Samasari. Again, very specific.
Yeah, same thing with the Turians. They had the tattoos reminiscent of their, was it the colonies that they had? I forget.
Yeah, again, very articulate, especially in Mass Effect 1. Everyone had their own unique face paint. I think they did the same with the Solarians. Different models, different textures, different face paints. All lots of detail, all for one little scene. That's all we want. We want detail. In a science fiction or sci-fi world, detail sells us on the immersive factor, the believability of the world. And to have a character like PB and just smear her, I don't even know why that was even a design. Like, who came up with that? It's like, imagine Batman without his cowl. You know, it's Bruce Wayne. It's Bruce Wayne with black eye makeup, and he's walking around. It's like, this does not look right.
Man in
a tux with face paint. I don't know. So I don't know where this guy's coming from, but obviously his standards are not the same as your typical gamer of the Mass Effect franchise.
Granted, that time was taken up of about 20 different subsequent patches, but it got there. And that said, it was not a focused game by any means. You were the Pathfinder, journeying to make a home for humanity, but how you did that was a bizarre mix of open-world exploration, bandit camp-style clearing, puzzle solving, and switch flicking.
And it didn't work. It was horrible. I didn't even play the game, and I know it's horrible. I could just see it in theory. It's a bad idea. In execution, it was just as bad. So, I mean, it would have been brilliant. It would have been brilliant if they took that idea and ran with it, and they actually made a tight series of levels that were just so simple, and they had really sophisticated, lever puzzles or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's like playing Legend of Zelda or whatever, third-person shooter controls. It could have worked. It could have actually totally worked, but it didn't. It was really bad. It was boring, monotonous, and they had a Deus Ex in your head the entire time. That's not how you do it.
So I just thought of an interesting idea. Like, if we want to reboot the world, but we still want to have Turians, Asari, and things like that, but with new interesting things added along. I mean, this is a complete reboot of the franchise, by the way, so it has nothing to do with all these other things. But why not have it so that when you first enter the thing, like the Reaper War has already been ended, and it was actually the Protheans that fought the war against the Reapers and kind of like won-ish, or like kind of like destroyed the cycle for you. So you get to like visit the remnants of just the destruction of this interstellar war that humanity's kind of been isolated from, and it's like making the steps into like these war-torn areas. That'd be cool if you want to do a story about exploration.
All these worlds have been ravaged by a war that happened long time ago.
Yeah.
You know what? I would not mind a reboot of the entire franchise if you want to wipe the slate completely clean. The design, the vibe, the feeling can still work.
Yeah, it could still all be the same. I hate using the term, it's the same thing but different. It's a phrase that I really hate, but it's the best one that I've kind of got right now. You know, something like that, I think that, but then of course that, but because without the because of the Reaper Prothean war that happened, there could still be a lot more influence, like, you know, how it affected the Asari, it affected the Turians and all the other species and how they interacted with one another. Like some of them are worshipping the dead Reaper artifacts and what have you. You know, things like that. Like the Reapers are still living on, but through the remnants of it, not those kind of remnants from Andromeda, but from the remnants of the Reaper technology.
Yeah, I see a good writer can take those ideas and work with them. I don't think we'd want to put this in the hands of a Mac Walters. I think if they want to keep the same team from, you know, Mass Effect 2, for example, you would have those guys just because they know the world so well that you'd have them write specific levels or specific quests. That would be great. But you get some of the experts to do it. Like you bring Drew back, you say, Drew, okay, you're in charge of everything, and you tell us what's to do. And they could take one of your ideas or any idea really and just make it work. And that's it. That's all you got to do. You just make it work. You write it all out. You write all your books. You base the game off the books. I don't care. However you do it, do the writing first. Build the game you want. That's simple.
That's how it's always done, because this is one of the reasons why when you look at like not the extended stuff, but other things in the game files, there's a lot of unused dialogue, you know, voice acting and things like even assets that have just been removed from the game. That's because they do all of that before they even go into main production. They just do tweaks along the way. But for some reason, modern day Bioware is like hiring people in like 6 months before release, and this kind of go, right, we need you as a VA for this kind of stuff, right? Just give him a script.
Yeah, the latest productions of Bioware have felt like fan-made projects. Like a fan of, I don't know, one of their franchises says, okay, well, we'll hire you and put you in charge, which to me feels what Andromeda was all about. It felt like someone cobbled together some crazy idea, which to me is Mac Walters. Mac Walters is a big fan, of course, of the projects. And when you saw those comic books he wrote, which were god-awful, it's like, yeah, this is what a fan would have written. They don't know how to carry a storyline together. They don't know how to develop a character or a backstory, but they think, hey, you know what? I got an artist. He can draw me panels. I could fill in dialogue bubbles. You're like, yeah, you can technically do that. It doesn't mean it's going to be any good. So, good premise, good writer, good execution. Write the damn story first. Critique the crap out of it. If everyone's happy with it, figure out why they're not or why they are. And go from there. But you got to write the story first, guys. This is basic stuff.
Oh yeah, but the other thing as well is that the way of how Bioware have done their story. I mean, they have you have your main objective line, which is usually stop something. It's nice and simple. It's not bad or good. Obviously, how it's done. And you like in Mass Effect 1, it was stop Saren. In Dragon Age Origins, it was defeat the Archdemon. And then you had your, I don't want to call them hub worlds, but you had like your kind of, you know, your Feros, your Ferrum, and Novaria, and obviously with Origins you had, you know, Orzammar, the Dalish place, Redcliffe Castle, and Denerim, and places like that. And all those were kind of, they were separated, but they were connected to the main objective: stop this thing from happening. And Bioware seems to have kind of lost that. Everything's like, ever since Mass Effect 2, none of these things are actually, it's like, what does Omega have to do with stopping the Collectors? Okay, you have to get Mordin, yes, but what does Omega have to do? It's like, with Feros, why are you going to Feros? For the Thorian, to stop to basically get in contact with the Thorian to get the cipher. The place actually had a purpose rather than just having one person there.
Yeah, that's very important, because you're talking about the plot. You're talking about, yes, there's an underlying reason for doing things, and we can apply that not just to drama and science fiction. We can do that to comedy. I was watching the Naked Gun series, as ridiculous as a farce of a show it is, but they have a plot, and then on top of the plot, they have slapstick comedy or whatever ridiculous. I don't know what style of comedy you call that, but there is the straight story that everyone can relate to, and then there's the ridiculous world of that setting. So yes, you need something that people can is concrete, is real, is believable, and then on top of that, you put other reasons that complement that. And the comedy can do that. Getting Liara can do that. Getting Morden can do that. Like, it's just, you need the basic layer, and then put layers of submissions or side missions that complement, which they sort of did in Mass Effect 3. Let's give them credit where it's due. With they go to those 2 planets, and there's like side missions. You don't have to do them, but why wouldn't you? I mean, you always do that in an RPG. You go in every direction before you go to your plot point. So yeah, that's how you do it in a video game. You get side missions that complement the plot, and then you go to the next plot and you do the same thing, repeat, you're done. This is your game, guys. This is simple.
Ultimately, despite being a sci-fi tale, Mass Effect is a human story. Delving into the notion of proving humanity's worth to an entire galaxy predisposed to think of us as the underdog, it's a phenomenal idea, uniting all colours and creeds under one banner in a way that our own global society can't seem to get down.
That's a nice sentiment. That has nothing to do with Andromeda. I did not get that vibe or message at all. And I didn't even play it. I just watched other people play it. I've listened to other people talk about it. That was never the message, as far as I recall.
Yeah, it was like, hey, we're on a big boat. Everyone likes boats, right? We like boats. We're going on a boat to a new place. So we're going on a boat.
Oh no, our other boats aren't here. Where are they? I don't know. Let's go find out. That was the message. Find your other boats.
Right. That was it, yeah.
That was it. There was no, oh guys, you have to come under our banner of humanity and work together. It's like, no, you're the only one alive. You have to do this or we die. It's like, why can't you do it? We're stupid.
Listen, we don't have the X button to forward the plot, okay? You're the only person that, it's if like someone putting the creator's notes in with the game design itself, like to the dialogue.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sam was like the easy button. And they were too scared not to have an easy button, so they had to wait for someone with the easy button.
Yeah, can someone also mention the fact that in the ending of Mass Effect 3, right, I hate to bring this up because it's always a sore wound, but they made such a big deal, and people defended it to this day about it's always about synthetics versus organics and blah, 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 blah. And yet what's Andromeda about? An artificial intelligence saving the human race. Which one is it, Mac? Are synthetics always going to destroy organics? Or in the case of Sam, a synthetic creation imbued in your head, which can stop your heart at any moment, is saving humanity? Pick a direction, Mac, and stick with it. Clearly, you have no idea.
Let's not bring up Edie or the Geth at all.
Yeah, let's just ignore those as well. Let's just conveniently ignore them.
Don't worry, they're gonna kill you. Just it's inevitable. It's like, thanks, story.
Yes. But it's like, you would have thought this would have been a constant theme reiterated in Andromeda. Like Sam goes HAL 9, or that the other Sams go HAL 9000. Like, you know what I mean? It's
no, they got pinned into a corner, and I think Casey got too much power. It's like, no. This is how it's gonna be. It's like, okay. Mac's like, sure, okay. You know, even in that interview, he was like, yeah, Casey knows it's right. Gotta keep it simple. It's like, what? What's going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, this gentleman's comments about Mass Effect is a message about humanity uniting culture. It's like, I can't buy that. I'm sorry. That was never a message, even in the first Mass Effect game. So.
Andromeda had elements of this, but it was far too weighted in the direction of we're humanity, we need a place to stay, so we're going to terraform this planet and stay here because reasons, rather than any actual
See, look at that makeup job. That is a mess. That is a joke. Okay.
That looks like you've got like goggles on, but without the lids, so it's just like stay.
It's if someone pulled a prank and you had like goggles on to go deep sea diving or something, and you take them off and your whole face is covered in ink. That's what would happen. That's what it looks like.
Someone's done the pirate trick. This be permanent marker.
Yeah, it's just, this is not stylistic. This is not like, if there's no, like, you know how in Dragon Age 2, Hawk put blood on his nose or her nose, and it was this sort of like a battle cry, like, oh, I got blood on me by the blood of a friend or whatever, and I'm gonna smear it on my face as war paint, and I'm gonna, I'm out to kill. Okay, it looks silly because it didn't really connect very well, and the trailer we got was like, Kate Mulgrew talking about Destiny. You're like, what the hell is this all about? And he's a mage doing melee combat, and you're like, what's going on? This is just stupid. This is dumb. There's no style. There's no culture. There's no sophisticated. There's no meaning behind this aside from, I'm a lazy bitch. I don't have time to look good or like, is it sunscreen? Like, how football players put the markers on their cheeks so they don't get glare. What is this crap? I don't know.
Homer Simpson's shotgun makeup.
Shotgun makeup, yeah, that's a good comparison.
It's like you just put the duckbill choke on. He's gone smack.
It's just insulting to see this, and maybe if she was like a Batman character or a thief character, and she didn't have a hoodie, you'd be like, all right, I could buy that. But no, she's a random chick who's who's really old. I don't even know how old she is, but
apparently she's pretty young, and like she's even younger than Liara, which is really funny because like, how old's Liara? Did say that she's what, 137 or something like that?
She's over 100, yeah.
But it's just really funny because it's like, oh, just imagine Shepard going, oh, I'm into older women. And then it's like, yeah, but amongst the sorry, I'm barely considered a child. And the Shepard going, I'm going to jail.
I'm like, into younger women.
Oh, God. It's just like, oh, no.
Oh, boy. Well, I'm just saying there's very poor design choices with the makeup alone, let alone her side quest. It was not best, BioWare.
Conversations and interactions that would come from this. Whatever angle BioWare take with Mass Effect going forward, it needs to, and this is a bit of a loaded proposition, feel like Mass Effect. I'll get to the combat focus later, but purely from a script writing level, the openings of Mass Effect 1 and 2 were so great at letting you make all the key decisions in regards to world outlook. It's why we fell in love with the series in the first.
And it's why Mass Effect 3 failed in giving us resolution to those choices. Just in case he forgot what he's talking about here.
Place. Number 7, show the first contact war.
You don't have to, unless you actually want to tell the story that would be the whole game. But no, this is not an essential component to bring Mass Effect back. So, and plus he's showing the bad comic books, so it's like you know, like Jack is Jack. Let them be a mystery. Let the elusive man be a mystery. And it would be cool if you could play as him. That would be kind of neat. You get to play as Jack, and then he gets all reaper-fied or whatever, huskified. That might be cool. Give him some humanity. Bring back Martin Sheen. I don't think he could pull off the voice anymore, but it's possible.
Yeah,
if you want to go that way.
It's not even taking someone like I've forgotten his name now. The person who plays Anderson. Oh, I've forgotten his name.
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
Yeah, bringing him back in and things like that.
Yeah, that'd be fine, but it would just be that game. Like, all the other points are irrelevant because you're just doing a First Contact War backstory. So like, you wouldn't have like a single flashback unless you want to do like some weird DLC of another character who was there during the Contact War. Yeah, how would that even work? I'm not sure, but.
Possibly the last vestigial plot point left untapped, the First Contact War is literally what happened when the first band of humans made their way across the galaxy, activating a dormant mass relay and drawing the attention of the Turians. The latter fire on the humans immediately thanks to their fear of repeating the Rachni Wars, where the Solarians accidentally opened a mass relay and let that destructive force through. This resulted in a 3-month conflict that I guarantee has great potential to be extrapolated on in-game. Perhaps we'd have...
Yeah, but this is like talking about Star Trek, how there was a war with the Klingons or the Romulans or whatever, and then it ended. It's like, you could make it a storyline, but it's not essential.
The First Contact War is the game's opening act, with all those furtive conversations about humanity's place in the galaxy coming thereafter, leading into some sort of common foe or obstacle to overcome in the finale. Either way, many fans have wondered what it was like when humans first discovered living, breathing, talking aliens. And as we know it wasn't pretty, this makes for some pretty perfect narrative groundwork. In fact, thanks to an ex-Bioware guy, Manvia Air, spilling all the beans on a Waypoint podcast, we know the team were actually initially designing a prequel called Mass Effect Contact, instead of what would then become Andromeda. It's certainly a good way to go, so why not run with that? Number 6, ditch the combat focus and restore Paragon/Renegade.
I don't know if you want to ditch the gameplay. I think what he's getting at here is focus on the conversation wheel. Whether that's Paragon or Renegade is not like the best idea. It's just a classic idea. No, we know it works. But Mass Effect has always been about the choices you make, which happen to involve dialogue. So I wouldn't say ditch the combat focus.
I guess it's when games are trying to be compared to, they're trying to be more like a Gears of War or Halo or something like that. I don't think they should be striving for that kind of focus, which I think is what you may be getting at.
Okay, yeah. I mean, they've pretty much figured out combat very well. I mean, it's a game. That's their job, to make games fun. They watered it down and streamlined it in 2. It's made more refined in 3, and then Andromeda added all the wonderful verticality. So great, fantastic, okay. But imagine having verticality in the First Contact War. You're like, wait, did we have jump jets back then? What happened? You know, so you can't do certain things. Although in some cases that might be a good idea. Like they can retcon guns, they could retcon jump jets. So
there may be ideas, but the main problem is just it's only a 3-month conflict, so there's not much. I mean, there's a story that you could tell, but not necessarily in a long-winded kind of way. You know, it's like, and the events happened before. Like, there's already a predetermined outcome. You know, it's kind of like
yeah. If they're going to go with that idea, they can easily take the Reaper War, and you can just be another commander on the ground somewhere, and tell a story from that. It doesn't have to be this giant, all-encompassing, epic story that has a big mystery in it, but it could be part of the mystery we already know, told from a different perspective. I'm a different commander or captain or N7 or whatever. It doesn't have to be one of those. It could be an alien perspective. Like, it's the same idea as the First Contact. You're just telling it from a different perspective with different settings, and you know, all the things you like about Mass Effect are just going to be gone because we don't have all the aliens, we don't have all the technology, and you have to do something else with your world. So it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Not sure that's going to appeal to. I'd rather just take what everyone knows and run with that because they know what they like.
Back to gameplay, and while the combat in Andromeda was some of the best we'd seen, taking the series down a route where the overall loop became go to place, clear out checkpoint, interact with item, repeat, is not why we play Mass Effect. Instead, as games like Uncharted Lost Legacy have proven, and as Mass Effect 1 and 2 did too, less is more. Granted, the first 2 Mass Effects still had their fair share of gun battles, but there was just as much time to peruse social spaces, reasons to interact with various elements on the
Yeah, don't make your argument and then show the DLC to Citadel for Mass Effect 3. It's not the best way to visualize what you're trying to say. Yes, there were lots of gun battles. There were lots of trash mobs in Mass Effect 1 when you went to those missions that were off the beaten path. And yeah, that's a problem. They didn't have to do that, but they did. So making a tighter script like in Mass Effect 2, but actually have it be plot relevant is probably the simplest thing to do. Have all the characters you want because people like, again, I'm just going on what works. People like Mass Effect 2 because of all the characters, even though it was stupid. But yeah, if you want to bring back Mass Effect, like do a episode 7 of Star Wars, just copy and paste a working formula, throw in a new protagonist, throw in some new characters, bring some old ones back, and it'll work. That will sell. So not a great idea, but it will work.
Ship and overall just take in the galaxy around you. This was lost in Andromeda thanks to a lack of planets, basic crafting systems, and gameplay loops that encourage getting lost in combat encounters rather than anything more meaningful. As for Paragon and Renegade,
I think that's a good point. anything more meaningful. You want to have everything be meaningful. You're crafting, why you're crafting, why you're getting the 20 pieces of elf roots to construct a gun or whatever. You know, give it value. Like, imagine you have to go out and get like 10 pieces of iron ore, or babies are going to die, and you're here to keep humanity alive. Like, that would have been like, holy crap, that's a pretty important side quest or main quest maybe. That's what Andromeda needed. It needed relevant, important storytelling, even if it was not on the main plot.
Whilst you could see what director Mac Walters and the team were going for in giving us more emotion-based responses, the reality was a series of conversation options that didn't actually mean anything or go anywhere.
Well, that's interesting too. I mean, they wanted to get away from the Paragon Renegade system, but they didn't mean anything. It's like, I could be logical here, I could be emotional here. It's like, so does that mean anything to me? Like, you can be stupid. Yeah, like that's why Dragon Age 2, if I can give it any praise, is the conversation, as silly as it was fun. You could be silly. That purple option just worked well with the character of Hawk, and it built into his character to the point where you had almost, I call it Dragon Age's version of auto dialogue, which was literally automatic and tracked your previous choices, which I thought was good. It's almost as if you're building a personality. With Andromeda, there was none of that. It was just, you have these options. Sometimes there's 4. Most of the time, you really only have one option, and how you say it doesn't affect anything. And again, I compare that to Alpha Protocol with the dialogue stance system, or DSS, whatever it was called, and that affected directly the person you were talking to and how you talked to them and how they reacted to you later in the game. So, yeah, it's great to have all these options, but if they don't mean anything, what's the point?
At least when we just had a binary sense of good or evil, it let the game track our choices, also letting the player fundamentally know whether they were signing off on a positive or negative outcome. Number 5, build a crew, one alien at a time. Andromeda's crew, whilst having potential, fell very flat in the long run, mainly because both they and Ryder in general, especially the constantly stuttering, awkward comedy lols of Fem Ryder, just couldn't get past surface level appeal. Now, rather than start out with a full crew to dart between on your respective ship, let's see Mass Effect 2 style progression return. In essence, it's the best possible structure. You start with a key number of personnel, a pilot.
Is that wise though, the whole recruiting thing though? I don't particularly agree with that way. You know. Like, well, Mass Effect 1's was simple enough upon whereby, you know, you could talk to Garrus, you could talk to Rex, but you know, while they were optional, you can always took them a long way because they're like some of the better characters. But the whole recruit this guy is not really a best idea for doing things personally.
Yeah, I mean, the actual recruitment was interesting for the most cases in Mass Effect 2, but the reasons why were very poor. And if we're going to have that, as Tom the Cat just mentioned in the chat there, no more static bricks. Well, I could say that even in Mass Effect 2, there weren't really static bricks, but Shepard was. So if we're going to have the idea of it affecting the player, or rather the player character, then yeah, you wouldn't want to have a player character just going, oh, it's time to get Bob. I could fit you into my schedule tomorrow, and then, you know, it's not a thing to do. It's a really important thing. I need Bob, or we're going to die. Like, we have to get Bob. Yeah. Like, it's a very important thing. So, again, everyone looks to Mass Effect 2 because it was the most popular. They like the format. Fine. You know what? If it took a few moments of dialogue from Tim why we needed to get this person, and be like, that goes a long way. And then we could use that in our collection process, saying, you know what, Jack, you're coming with me because I have a job just for you and only you can do. Whatever you want, I'm going to give you. That's because only you in the entire freaking galaxy can fit this role. And Jack would be like, yeah, well, I hate you. I hate Cerberus too. Like, you do whatever it takes to get Jack on your team. And you'd have reason to like her because you respect that about her. You know she hates Cerberus for good reason. You figure that out. And that becomes part of the story. That's what you want. You want your characters, you want your side characters, your subplots to connect to the main story. That's all you have to do. And yes, that does happen in Mass Effect 2 with the characters being part of a suicide mission, but it's done in a stupid, unexplained, illogical way.
Dave's Odyssey of recruitment. You just say hello, and then you do the recruitment mission, and they just come along with you, no questions asked. It's like, what? Like no loyalty or anything like that. Like the loyalties happen something later.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you need the person's loyalty upon the recruitment? So they're just like, yeah, I'll do it for free. You know,
and a character like Jack would have broken free. She would have gotten what she needed and then got the hell out of there. And who the hell? A suicide mission? Are you crazy? I'm a survivor. I get the hell out of bad situations. Why would I want to risk my life? You know.
Yeah, I think.
If she's going to go along for the thrill and enjoys killing people, she would have started killing Cerberus operatives. She'd be like, oh, I'm on a ship full of Cerberus goons. I can't wait. I'm going to slaughter this first deck. Then I'll go to the second deck.
I think once again, there's a problem with Mass Effect 2 removing the agency of Shepard. And instead, they should have had characters which should have been linked in connection to the actual plot itself. Like they were already investigating it, or they were already affected by it. Like if, let's say, they wanted to keep Jack and Miranda in, but let's keep Jack separate. Maybe Jack could have actually been experimented by the Collectors, but managed to break free, and now she's seeking revenge upon them.
That sounds great. I love it. The horrible the horrible mooks of the pseudo bad guys we can't see. And we have a reason to hate them, which just also happened to coincide with our own plot, which is to stop them. It's like, wow, we found a companion that has the same reasons or the same goals as we do. What an idea, you know? As opposed to, hey, Tally, can you join me? Yes, Shepard, sure. Whatever you want. It's like, we like you too, Tally, but can you have more reason for coming along? No, that's okay. I like ships. Oh, all right. Like, as much as we enjoy the storyline of other characters, they had nothing to do with the main plot. So, sadly.
Yeah.
And some starting members and slowly start building your squad, unlocking a new character every couple of hours or so. This way, there's an excuse to spend time getting to know them and seeing how they affect the dynamic of play and the squad itself. And if we're running with the idea of the First Contact War, there'd be all sorts of post-Fallout conversations surrounding why the various races would even join up with a band of humans to aid in a wider goal. A key element of Mass Effect is discovery, and that goes double for the crew. Number 4, put Drew KARPYSHYN and CORY HUDSON back on lead duties.
I don't know if Drew was part of the main writing team in 2, but
he was lead, co-lead with Mac.
Yeah, that's not good. You don't want co-leads. You want leads, creative leads. And I think he's just, I don't know how you spell Casey and Corey, but I guess he just misspelled it, and then he didn't bother to check the spelling, and then he just ran with it.
Corduroy Hudson.
Yeah, I don't think you want to put Casey Hudson on in charge of anything. It's hard to say because he was in charge of 2 and 3. So he had too much power in 2 and 3, especially 3. So I would, and plus he's in a higher position now at Bioware. So yeah, this is not a recipe for success. You know, Drew's fine, but you want to get the guy who did the cinematics, the Italian guy who did the cinematics for Mass Effect 2. I can't remember his name.
Yes, I know what you mean. He's working for free for free, is it?
He was on Halo. Yeah, so he's done other things. So you want the cinematic lead director. You want definitely Drew, and I don't know if you want to get what's her name that ran off to Riot Games, who did the main gameplay loop for the main gameplay for 1 and 2. What's her name? I can't remember. But yeah, you want people to trust that know the gameplay, that know the games, and bring them back. Sure, but again, you can get new people so long as they understand the technology. I don't really care.
Yeah, I suppose a big one, isn't it? It's like you can bring in as many key people as you want, but if you don't have the solid workhorses who know the stuff inside out, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to have good ideas just for failed execution.
And I don't understand the need to use Frostbite in the first place unless this is a mandate.
Yeah, I think it is a mandate.
I understand that, but it's like if they could say, hey, EA, we're really good with Unreal or really good with this or that. It has all the things we need. It's free. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. It's like, let's just do that. And if it's not, then you have to then just hire the guys who know the engine. That's it. Technically, just get the thing out the door. There are so many glitches. There are so many problems in the past few years. You're doing whatever you're doing, they're doing it wrong. So it doesn't matter if you hire Drew or this or that. If they don't know the tech, you're wasting everyone's time. And you're struggling to teach people for years and years how to do something. And it's like instead of reinventing the wheel, they're reinventing the tools to make the wheel. And that is silly. Use a 5-year-old engine. I don't care. Get the best tool for the job. Get the right people who know how to use the tool for the job. That's all.
I think if they were going to do something like that, then they need to set aside people for any kind of pre-production and kind of go, right, we want to try and make the tools that would build a role-playing for the kind of games that we want to make. And then they do that. And I'm sure that people who made Madden, FIFA, and the Need for Speed games probably did that as well. I'm just not sure if Bioware did it or if they were literally building things like they were building the track as they were smelting the iron at the same time, you know.
Well, all you would have to do is get a proof of concept, a prototype that's not even 2-3 minutes long. Showcase, here's combat, here's this, here's a cutscene, here's a pre-rendered video, or whatever they've got. They showcase every single element that you want to do. Say, look, we can do it. It's like this. It's not perfect, it's buggy, but these are all the things we're going to do in this game. And all we have to do is scale up, hire some new guys. We have all the documentation. This is a proof of concept. It works. And if you give us the go-ahead, we'll make this a 40-hour experience or whatever the hell it is. And that's it. That should do it.
Sorry, Mac Walters, but whilst the problems of Mass Effect 3 and Andromeda are manifold, they also happened under your watch. In case you're not down with Mass Effect's behind-the-scenes cast and crew setups, Mac Walters first worked on Mass Effect 2 under lead writer Drew KARPYSHYN, the latter of which also wrote the original Mass Effect and went on to pen several supplemental Mass Effect novels, which I highly recommend. As for Casey Hudson, he...
Okay, so I agree with everything he just said. I mean, I'm not saying Mac is a horrible writer, but he was in charge of those projects. So it's like, all right, Mac, you had your fun, you had your shitty comic books, time to get someone in charge who's a little better than you. And you could work under them. Obviously, you're passionate. He was great in Mass Effect 1, okay? He did Garrus. You got to give him that. So, more of that. That's all. Give the people what they want. They want Garrus, give them another Garrus. Simple enough.
Yeah, I think he's a okay writer. I just think he needs a good editor for Mac. You know, you need to have someone sift through all the bad ideas, to which he inevitably is going to have. But if you give him too much power, you give him too much, you know, status, and he'll just run rampant because there's no one to challenge him.
Yeah, that's the case for many writers as well as many developers. You need a very good QA guy, just hovering over your shoulder, or when he's done a build, blow the crap out of your build or your writing, send it back. Keep going, refine it. That's how you build software. That's how you do writing. I mean, the writer has 2 modes. He has the perfectionist editor mode where he just critiques everything. And then he has the creative writing freedom mode. And you have to know when to take that hat and put it off completely. You can't have both hats. You can't wear both hats at the same time. You'll get nowhere. And it's one of those skills you have to learn as a writer. So if someone like that is in charge and doesn't know how to put those hats on, you're going to have a very paint by numbers sort of experience.
He's responsible for directing the trilogy itself, framing the cinematography, narrative structure, and characters that we love so much. Now, Walters stepped in to helm Mass Effect 3 when Drew left Bioware to join Bungie, resulting in that ending. The one that saw Casey Hudson also depart thereafter, as you can just imagine the conversations happening in the aftermath. Walters was thus one of the only original key members left standing, to which he was then given lead duties for Andromeda's story, and again, not the best. Now KARPYSHYN and HUDSON have both rejoined Bioware during Andromeda's development, but had no say in the project itself. Most recently, HUDSON has claimed that he still loves Mass Effect and seems like he'd be happy to work on another project. We've just got the rather passionless Anthem to get through first. Number 3, let us play as different races. As I mentioned,
it's not a big deal. Again, I'm not against the idea. It's just, I mean, yes, it's been done in Dragon Age, but then the whole point of your background is irrelevant. And the problem is in Mass Effect, all of these races have with them an entire culture. You have, the Asari, very specific culture. The Turians, very militaristic culture. So now you have to have a generic character who is somehow going to be appointed to a military organization. Could be the Alliance, could be this or that. And they have to have the same rank, the same status, the same background, or relatively the same background to work with all those templates. As opposed to Dragon Age Origins, where, yeah, you had your own unique origin story, and then you wound up in the same place because there was no culture. You were one of the last, if not the only, along with Alistair, wardens. So it's like, oh, now I'm in charge because there's no one else. Yeah. That is like bare bones. And you can't have bare bones in space. Like, it doesn't, like, you could start off with bare bones. You have this, little rickety ship, and then you build up with it. Yeah, if you want to tell a story like that, it could work, but it's a lot of effort just to get, the 4 or 5 different types of aliens there are, because you want to play as all of them. It's a lot of effort. So it's nice. It's just too much. And
it's a lot of dialogue as well, isn't it? That you have to acknowledge, and it's just going to be an acknowledgement. It's not going to be a major heading point because the story has to play out in a very specific way.
And it's going to be empty. Like, even if we say that Shepard could have been a Turian, because the ship was based off Turian and human technology, and it was a joint effort, and they don't quite trust you, but you're a Spectre, so that would have to be it. You'd have to be some sort of N7, a Spectre, or a Justicar, or something like that. It would be something weird like that. It would have to be an established order that's kind of autonomous. And it's hard to say. They could do a Mass Effect Origins style game that could work that way, but it's going to be very. You know what? I'm actually trying to sell it to myself as I'm thinking it through.
One of the only ways that I can really sort of imagine it is if, let's say, it's a collection of playing, the races, but it's one story, but each character influences the story as they progress. So let's say, for example, Bob goes up one point, that then influences the next story, which then has a knock-on effect or something like that. It kind of accumulates into one event. So you're basically playing 5 people, and then it accumulates into one ending or something like that.
There would have to be interrupts or dialogue options specific to your background that we saw in Inquisition. That might be cool. I'd rather just have a tighter script with a lot more dialogue options for one character, as opposed to just having, hey, I want to play as a Krogan. It's like, why? Because I can. It's like, well, do you want Baldur's Gate in space, or do you want Mass Effect in space? Like, which one? Like, it's hard to say, because again, Baldur's Gate, or rather Dragon Age, came from Baldur's Gate. The idea of creating different classes and different races is kind of part of that, whereas Mass Effect came from KOTOR, and that's where we got Paragon and Renegade. That's the design choice. You can do it. It's just a lot more effort, and I don't think it's essential to the story.
Earlier, Mass Effect is fundamentally a human story, but as with all great fiction and sci-fi, there's a way to use the various races and their inbuilt cultural traits to hold up a mirror to our own. After all, the Quarians, their pilgrimage and their faces constantly being hidden is a pretty direct parallel to various Middle Eastern cultures, with the Krogan almost representing a physical manifestation of the need for conflict and war.
Yeah, again, I'm not against the idea. It just sounds very complicated. I don't know how that would work well. It would have to be like origin story, where you have this giant 20 or 2 hour experience building up to it, and then boom, you're a Spectre, or boom, you're the sole survivor, and then you're like, oh, you're special. Uh-oh. There's another trope we can't wait to see. You're the chosen one. How did you get that mark on your body? What can it do? Oh, you can talk to aliens that we've never encountered before. You know, it's just, you got to really be careful with this crap. And I'd rather focus on something simpler. So, but yeah, Quarians, I'd love to see them. It just, as an origin story, lots of effort. Make it part of the main story, no problem.
Discuss these elements with their respective races for hours at a time in game already, but what about actually seeing their cultures and societies in full? If the larger point of intergalactic conflict in Mass Effect's writing is that regardless of location across the cosmos, we're all bound by similar ideals, goals, and moralities, having the realization of, hey, they're just like us, would land even better if we were to see it firsthand. Remember when...
Yeah, but you don't need to be the main character of that culture to experience it firsthand. So, we saw that with that exact scene with Tali in her loyalty mission. Same thing in Grunts. You know, we got to go to Chachanka. So there's nothing wrong with exploring that, but it's easier if you only have one character on startup.
Mass Effect 2 really dove into Krogan culture and Grunt's need for a rite of passage to get his head straight. It was one of the most memorable parts of the game and indicative of what a playable multiracial Mass Effect could feel like. Number 2, have a multifaceted villain/antagonistic force. Across the trilogy, we've only really had one great Mass Effect villain. Yes, the elusive man lived up to his name and facilitated the whole what's his real agenda style framework better than most, but he wasn't a patch on Saren, the initially sadistic evil mastermind who came with a plot twist resulting in a great save him from himself style finale. For Andromeda, sadly it was the thoroughly generic Archon, someone who gets teased as an evil scientist type, dissecting the Milky Way galaxy's races and combining them to create a perfect being, only for it all to get discarded in the final third when he starts yelling all sorts of "you're going to die" style insults instead.
He didn't want to create a perfect being. He just wanted to make more Ket.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Because weren't they seeing the Ket as above everyone else?
Yeah, he wanted to convert them all to mindless drones. I don't think he wanted to make a perfect being. And Saren is you know, the best example we have of villain, wasn't the best villain. You barely get to interact with him throughout the story.
I think it was mostly for in the Mass Effect. I think if you look at it in terms of the Mass Effect games themselves, he was the only villain that we actually had that we could actually talk to in a meaningful way.
Yeah, but we were always one step behind him. And then we finally get to catch up with him, and it's like, oh, you're on Vermeer. And then the game's almost over. And then that's when you actually get to talk to him. Right at
well,
the
you also
end.
had the Vermeer encounter as well, didn't you? So
it's just, yeah, I mean, you want to have as many interactions with the antagonist as possible. And it's hard to do that when you're chasing after him and he has like industry over here. He's got resources over there. He's flying in this massive ship, and then it's like, yeah, okay, but how do you bring them together? You have to have a good reason to do that, and you know, you can't just pull a bullshit The Last Jedi crap where you could suddenly have mind connections across light years. You know, you can't do crap like that. You have to make it believable. So having a villain in space is tough, and you have to bring them along and have them play their parts in a believable way. So it's hard to do that. And yes, Saren's the best example we've got. So I would rather the writers think things through than say, oh, let's make another Saren. And they could have done so many things with the elusive man, and they just troped the crap out of him. I am the big evil guy who wants to do stuff. Here, Shepard, go get another Pokemon. Here, Shepard, do this. Oh, Shepard, you're so short-sighted. You have no. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Basically, like the various layers to Mass Effect's world, we need a villain who isn't just trying to make a name for themselves. Alongside being revealed as a puppet to Sovereign, Saren genuinely thought he was doing the right thing for the greater good. A thought actually referenced in an Andromeda Easter egg. Yet these grey area setups got more ironed out and nigh on removed over time. Like the
Didn't How was a sub-boss? Didn't he just want to make a name for himself? He was a pretty good enemy.
Oh, I actually no. I've forgotten because I haven't played through Origins in ages, so I've forgotten the How mission itself.
Yeah, he was. I mean, if you played the noble, the human noble story, he was like a friend of the family, very polite, and we find out he's the guy who instigated this all. He was working under Loghain, and he's just a guy who wanted power. It was like, yep, I killed you. Like we got his story. It was simple. It was clear. There was nothing wrong with that. Could have been more? Of course it could have been more. It could have done a lot more with that. But the game was huge, so... Again, there's nothing wrong with having a villain for the sake of being bad. It's how you do it. How is he bad? How is he influencing you? How is he thwarting your plans? Is he intelligent? Is he stupid? Is he clever? Blah, blah, blah. You could have villains of all sorts so long as the villain is the best character for attacking your protagonist. That's all a good villain needs to be. Doesn't have to be smart. Doesn't have to be stupid. It just works with thwarting and attacking the protagonist. So it can work either way.
Various race-related issues.
Maybe they could have it like the new opening, like as a teaser trailer. You see like Marauder shields, and he looks in the mirror, and then it turns back around, and then it's Commander Shepard, and it's like, oh, they're the same, or something like that. You know? Something really dumb, you know.
Oh dear. Let's not bring up Band-Aids when we're talking about Mass Effect again.
And smoothing over of tensions that we have to contend with in a standard Mass Effect campaign, why not have a villain that also exemplifies just how human everybody really is? Number one, release multiplayer separately. If there's one...
Now that's interesting. I'm not against the idea, but some people are like, well, Borderlands had a single player as well as a multiplayer, and it worked well. But I would actually argue this is a good idea because it allows the multiplayer studio or company part to focus exclusively on gameplay, and then allow the single player to focus exclusively on story. So what ends up going to happen? This is just my idea. The guys who figure out multiplayer, they go, "Hey guys, we just balanced the crap out of this dynamic, crazy gaming experience. Here's all of our code. Here you go. You can start making the game part of your game. It'll work. And whenever you need an update, just call us. We'll give you the next build, and you can update your game code. Whereas you can just focus on getting the story, getting the cutscenes, getting the cinematics going. I think that would actually be a smart move, but it's all based on the dynamic of the company and the developers and the artists and how their life cycle works for their software. So doesn't mean they have to release it separately, but if they work on it separately and have teams specific to building those, like imagine the story was literally a template, and in between the story beats, you have the gameplay, and that's where
yeah, that could work.
Yeah, I think I'm just thinking in terms of development, but I'm not against it being separate products either.
One key thing that never sat right with Mass Effect's evolution over the years, it was this bizarre push towards establishing it as a multiplayer game. Now, quality of the combat aside, multiplayer deathmatches and class-based clashes have no place in a game predicated on narrative, weight, and world building.
Sure it does. Mass Effect 3 had really good multiplayer, and it tied in with the main story, even if it was kind of weak. Worked fine. You had strike teams or people in the Reaper War that were trying to isolate and help whatever. Again, very weak story, but it's still connected. And Tom the Cat's telling me right now, keep the multiplayer, but make it co-op like Fable did. Interesting. The players can be the heroes of the story. Yeah, that could work. Again, it's simple.
Wasn't that something like in the original Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights where you could actually jump. You could actually play through the campaign in multiplayer.
Really?
And that's what people. Yeah, you could play through it in multiplayer, and that's what a lot of people, I suspect, wanted with Mass Effect if they were going to add in multiplayer. Like you could jump in and you could play as Garrus. You could control Garrus in someone else's Shepard or the Ara and things like that.
That'd be cool.
It's doable because it has been done before. It just needs to be. They just need to put the work into it.
Yeah, again, this idea of co-op play or making an ad hoc server or online lobbies or whatever, this can work together with a single player game. I just think having two teams work on separate components and then coming together would be less crazy. And you know how you have like vertical slices? Same idea, only you do that for the entire game. So it's like, okay, get this story beat figured out, perfect. Make all the gameplay options or choices that a game player could do, and we'll wait for the actual combat level to be loaded and whatever. We'll put those choices, those flags throughout the level, and then when they come, we can test. It's kind of like, again, it's like making a template, and you drop the gameplay into those elements. And if you want story to be told within that gameplay, then that's where you then put more elements on top of the gameplay for the cutscenes to work in tandem. It could happen. I'm not saying it's the cleanest solution, but I think it'd be a smarter way of doing it, as opposed to just chapter 1, build everything, chapter 2, build everything, chapter 3, build everything. Because sometimes in gameplay that's not going to work. Or sorry, in game design and game development, it's not going to work. And we end up hearing stories of the last thing in a movie or the last thing in a game ends up being level 1, because they've built all the systems throughout the production, and they're going to take a vertical slice and make that their level 1. So all the components that can work throughout the game are then showcased, and it's a great way of building hooks for the audience in terms of storytelling, in terms of gameplay. So you have all the elements, first 20 minutes, or even the first 10 minutes. Some critics over the years have said, some of my teachers have said, if you don't hook the guy at least in the first 10 minutes, and in my case, the first 5 minutes, the first 4 minutes, then it's going to be one of those games where you're like, I'll play it for an hour here and then forget about it. I don't know why. That's just how some people buy and play games back in the day.
Literally zero. Andromeda had the closest to a cool idea here, as you could send operatives away on missions and then play the results, booting you into a multiplayer match in the process, but it's always been a distraction and nothing more in the grand scheme of things. Going forward, if EA are going to insist...
Was it a distraction? Did you get resources from it?
I don't remember.
It was just for fun?
I don't actually remember what the Apex missions actually did.
Yeah, because if they're not tied into getting resources, which the game is all about getting resources and building something out of them, that'd be kind of pointless. So, yeah, at least in Mass Effect 3 you got points for your score, which is dumb, but at least it's something.
On having this box ticked, siphon off the Mass Effect multiplayer altogether. Release it separately on another disc, or hell, just make it free to play. The whole unlock system...
I agree, make it free to play. Make a free to play or freemium online multiplayer, horde mode, whatever this is, whatever you call Mass Effect multiplayer. Go for it. Great idea. Simple, easy, you've proven it. Make more of it, make more maps, make more modes. Yeah, I'd play that.
Of blind boxes plays directly into a free-to-play model anyway, and all those people dying to play third-person space combat can get their fill, allowing a more dedicated, story-focused team to build a Mass Effect worthy of the name. No matter how solid the end product, multiplayer in Mass Effect will always feel like an afterthought. As it...
Really? I think Mass Effect 3 multiplayer was not an afterthought. That was the first experience of the game when they released the free demo for 2 weeks. That was it 1 week? That was really fun. So, I don't know. I don't think it was an afterthought. I think that was pretty good. Did not feel like an afterthought at all. I thought it was pretty core component to the experience.
did back in Mass Effect 3. Remedying this immediately would go a long way into showing the fans that Bioware know where their priorities should lie. And that's how I'd make some...
Well, that's not a bad argument, actually, because you want them to focus on storytelling and dialogue options and cutscenes interspersed between all this wonderful exploration and combat. So, yeah, I mean, if the multiplayer is great, add it. If they can make a origin story that works and, you know, modulate the voice for Krogans, modulate the voice for Turians, it could work. Yeah, sure. But that's a lot of work. I mean, that's a lot of effort just to get all those voice actors, all the sound editing, all the origin story-ish scenarios, all the versions of dialogue options on top of whatever they're going to do with dialogue. Again, because the focus of Mass Effect is dialogue. It's the dialogue choices, the branching narrative, the relationship systems, whatever they've got. And if they add that more complexity to that, you're gonna take away from even more experiences just because you want to have origin stories or to have more backgrounds or the freedom to choose the Krogan path or whatever it is. Again, not bad ideas. It's just too big. So this was a year ago from What Culture. Interesting, slight difference between the two reviewers. If you want to see the previous one, go watch the one we did on Sunday. And I actually like that one a little better. This one was very specific with its points. And that one was kind of like, I would say would be, you know what, I have to go rewatch it myself to say whether it was worth or better than this one. But I think it comes down to not understanding what Mass Effect is and what people expect it to be, like having the First Contact War as a setting. Sure. Do you really want to go back before all the aliens are introduced? You could. You'd have to have like a proto-Babylon 5 scenario where the aliens haven't met the Minbari yet, they haven't met the Centauri yet, or the humans haven't met all these alien races in the JMS Babylon 5 world, and you're being introduced to them. That would be cool, but it's no longer Babylon 5. It's its own beast. So can be done. It's just not the same. So people are telling me you can do it being an orphan raised on the Citadel. Yeah, again, it's not impossible. It's just you have to do a lot of effort just to get that set up and then to integrate it, and then to integrate it well, as opposed to, you are a Krogan, you are an elf. You know, it's like, So any questions you guys want to ask, I'd be happy to answer. If not, thank you very much for your time. As always, myself and UDP. Anything you'd like to say before we go, guys? Anything at all? Leave in the comments. No? Gameplay? Anything about story? Anything you'd like to see? Crafting people are talking about. You could be an N7 operative in Mass Effect 3? I did not know that.
There were 3. I think there was 4 N7 classes that you could play, or was it 5 that you could unlock?
Was that like DLC, or what was that?
Yeah, it was free DLC, I think.
Oh, that's nice. How long before Bioware gets axed by EA? Jesus. We have to see how Anthem does, and that's going to take a few months. So they had it, again, their release schedule is like April, May. So if that's the case, we have to wait at least that long, and then another month after that for sales. Who would you like to have write Mass Effect? That's a good question. I could choose all sorts of science fiction authors. Definitely not the Weeks family, who have been with Bioware for a while. Not saying they're bad writers, but these are the guys who wrote Sarah and a bunch of other weird characters from Inquisition and thought this is a good idea. We have, what is it, 9, 10 characters for the hell of it.
Yeah.
So it's someone who knows how to tighten up a script. And Drew would be the easiest bet just because he's an author and he knows how to write. And he's been on the team before. But I would say upcoming authors could work from science fiction. And you really have to know what you like out of these guys. So, like, my favorite authors are still... Sorry?
Someone just said use Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson. No. Like, if you want like something like a visceral sort of writer, and if you're going for that vibe, it depends on the tone of the story as well. Like the guy who's writing the current Scythe series, I've done a review on my channel called Neil Schusterman. He does really good sci-fi, and he does dystopian stories as well. So, and he does a lot of gory stuff, like brutal, like really scary, gory science fiction, like dystopian science fiction. Like that would work. And you'd say, okay, just tone it down on the gore and focus more on the relationships. Like that's, like you'd have to get a romance author, and you'd have to get a, I was about to say a political science sort of fellow, but I would say just a science fiction guy is fine. And the style has to be tight, and that's why I recommend Neil Schusterman. And then get someone who's good at romance, just because you want to have interpersonal communication to be very important. So, honestly, they should just pick a canon ending for Mass Effect 3 and do a story after the Reapers. Yeah, that's the one I would go with. It just pick a canon ending, run with it, see how good the story goes. Do 4 iterations before you choose one. Simple workshop experience. How about go after the destroyed ending and Galaxy is in a Mad Max state? Oh, that's interesting. And you and your team to help rebuild. Yeah, that would have been a fantastic Andromeda scenario. Everyone's charged to a husk. What do you do? Where's your resources? How do you get them? How do you make them? How do you rebuild? How do you turn on these relays? What can you explore? Who's alive over there? That'd be fine. Yeah, a clean slate reboot can do it too. Again, take all the things you like. You have to be careful with these reboots, as we've seen in science fiction with, like, God, Star Trek, and what's happened to that. And you know how Bioware is with its freaking politics. Ooh. So imagine Bioware rebooting Mass Effect with its political climate. So I wish we could just sell the rights to Obsidian, but who knows what Bioware of 2020 could do to their franchise if they rebooted it. Do you think Anthem had a restart mid-development looking at how the final product turned out? I don't know. There hasn't been too much information, but the only thing I can deduce is that they were so hung up on coming up with gameplay that they scrapped the ones that didn't work and polished the ones that did. And I don't know why that took 6 years or 7 years. And they have this ridiculously stupid story to follow that. So they could have just had no budget, no focus on story, and just streamlined the crap out of everything else. Like literally everything in gameplay. Combat, loot, shooting, skill progression, all of that. Just streamlined it to death. And I don't know if that's per design or per iteration as a result of being unable to accomplish things. I can't say. It's hard to say how complicated Frostbite is for what they wanted to do with it. JMS. There's a good idea for Babylon 5. He would be one of those guys who'd be really good to work with, because the stories he has of working with executives have been fantastic. Like, I wouldn't want to hire Neil Gaiman. Like, he can do science fiction as well, but he'd be too nice about it, whereas JMS would be like holding his ground and having all these creative ideas. And plus, Neil Gaiman is kind of notorious. Whenever he starts a game project, either it gets canceled or the studio gets destroyed. So every time. That was kind of an inside joke. When I messaged him on Twitter and he responded, and everyone started bashing him. It was like, because he knew that every game he was a part of got destroyed or ended the company. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, JMS would be great. I agree. We all know the new Star Trek is the Orville Star Trek Discovery is just a space STD. You're right. The Destroyed Reaper during ending should be canon with a Mad Max type thing. Yep. I think that will be working. Gender Garrus will be a thing. Ooh. That would be scary. It's like they turned Mass Effect 3 multiplayer into fully fledged $60 experience. Ooh. I don't know. That would not sell. Now, in this climate of free-to-play or like Apex Legends, no, wouldn't sell. Do you think about Dragon Age with the present information? Well, there isn't that much information for Dragon Age, so I can't tell you what's going to happen. And it's until we get those marketing trailers, we can't say. So, I think JMS could, because again, JMS has worked on really bad projects, and case in point is Crusade, which he said he would never do if he was presented with that situation again, because to him creatively it wasn't worth it, but he still went through with it. So he produced a product even though it was a mess. He got a great team behind him, and they did a spin-off of Babylon 5. And I enjoyed what he was trying to do, because Babylon 5 to me has always been D&D in space. And Crusade was essentially King Arthur with D&D in space. So I think he could easily take the Mass Effect franchise and do a fantastic job. And of course, he's a science fiction guy, so he knows his stuff. He's worked on Captain Power. He's worked on the real Ghostbusters. He has writing chops. He can do it. Do you think the regular people working in Bioware is okay with what's been going on? No, I do not think they are, obviously, as a result of Andromeda, Inquisition, and Anthem. They are not the right people for the task. So, sadly. How about a game like Star Wars Galaxy at War? I'd have to think about that. That's kind of... because you're changing genres. And it's still shooting, but it's... like you'd have to really do something with the story there, and I'm not sure how that would work.
No, there are ways to do branching dialogue. I mean, I know StarCraft 2 dabbled in the branching dialogue, and that was a strategy game. So it can be done. It just has to be done in a very specific way.
Yeah, I know, that is the one. The focus is multiplayer, right?
Star Wars Galaxy? No. Oh, wait, no. Unless it's Star Wars Galaxies, which was the MMO.
Oh.
Wait, sorry, Star Wars Galaxy at War. No, that was a strategy game.
Sorry.
So,
yes, an RTS
so that kind of... I actually had to read the sentence then to actually make sense of it.
Yes, I do know that JMS got pissed, and that's one of the reasons why he would never do it again. And he said in his interviews that it was not worth it. But he would be able to go through with it, and if he was in charge of the project, then he'd be fine. And it's a lot different when you're talking about a TV show and you're talking about a video game. Because video game, you could alter things very quickly. And with JMS, you're not building a set. It's all digital. And JMS was one of the first guys to introduce to, I think, Warner Brothers or whoever the studio was, to do CGI. And that was during his presentation of Babylon 5 back in the 90s. So I think he can pull it off. I think he'd be right at home. Canes or fleets? That is the immortal question we keep asking ourselves every time Anthem is played. How about Babylon 5 game like the first Mass Effect? Well, yeah, I mean, that's what Babylon 5 was, or Babylon 5 in video game format was what Mass Effect was. That's what the Citadel was. So, but yeah, I would love an RTS. That's what I thought part of Mass Effect 3 should have been. But again, that's just me being a silly gamer dude. Again, I don't think EA is the fault here for Mass Effect. I think, as we learned from the CEOs of Bioware, they said that EA gives you the rope, you're the one who hangs yourself. It's them, it's the developers, it's their egos, it's how much can they chew. And we saw that with Andromeda especially. They were gung-ho on this ridiculous concept of doing, well, the wrong engine, and then doing procedural generation in the wrong engine, which is a nightmare. So I don't think, again, everyone's blaming EA for a lot of crap, and they do have some of the blame, but not the majority of it. It's all in the studio.
Does make you wonder, because that EA producer, was it Matt Gant? Like, he's been around since Mass Effect 3, he's worked on Andromeda, and now he's working on Anthem. He's just like, this dude just won't go away.
Mike Gamble. Well, Mark Darrah's still around, so... You know, I'm really, like, I've seen some of their videos or their Twitter responses. They're kind of like, oh, thank you for the support. It's like, of course, like, they realize how bad it's been, but they're, like, pushing ahead because they said they were. So they have 3 months to get this, you know, Anthem working, and it's not looking good. Free-to-play Mass Effect Battle Royale with pay for cosmetics and emotes. Oh, dear. I would... no, I don't think I'd ever even attempt to look at that. That would be frightening. All right, guys. I think we've... sucked up the day enough. Thank you for your questions and your time. And I'll get back on my KOTOR analysis. And of course, any ideas you guys, be happy to leave them in the comments. This has been UDP and myself. Have yourself a great day.